about where you stand. We had, I mean, so that's the thing, like my daughter's soccer team, like, so there was a, that's what happened during 2020. No one spoke up, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so they had, the other parents went off, and so our team, they got in a little, whatever, yelling match. And I was just like, and I'm like, hey guys, calm down. It's a girls' soccer game. So they yelled at me, and I'm like, whatever. So anyway, the coach after the game is excoriating, like, my daughter's team. I'm like, yo. And so everybody's just taking it. I'm like, bitches. I'm like, hey, you're literally yelling at the victims here. Like, he's like, well, I heard you. You told everybody to calm down. I'm like, yeah, I know. But this is wrong, and here's why it's wrong. And he's like, oh. And then, like, the director of the club, one time I'm like, hey, you know, you're a terrible leader. Like, here's why. I'm like, you ruined my kid's love for the sport. Because nobody's willing to speak up anymore. Everybody just, that was 2020. Well, as long as I get by, next thing you know.
Camera going?
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. I just talked.
No, you're good.
Yeah, next thing you know, we're in a situation where the world's in a very precarious spot and no one's willing to say anything because they're afraid to lose their jobs. Right. I know that's a horrible place to be. It's a horrible place to be. So those of us who have the freedom and who own businesses and who aren't beholden to anybody, we have the duty to speak up. Because if we don't speak up, who will? Right. Because they're just trying to live their life, put their kids through school, put food on the table. Next thing you know, they're like, oh, well, you're not essential. When in humankind did we ever say you're not essential? Right. What is essential? What's essential to me might not be essential to you.
Well, and what's essential to the government is totally different than what you feel.
I would say gyms are essential.
Absolutely.
Mental health without the gym, you're telling people, oh, it's just fine, go train with bands.
But people aren't going to do that.
No, you need social, you need interaction. Then we got kids in schools covering their faces. Yep. You know, my daughter, I don't know. Like, we came here when she was in 8th grade. She's just now developing a friend group because the first 2 years, my kids never wore masks. We had a health exemption. All right? But imagine trying to fit in at a school when you can't tell people's facial expression. Imagine trying to learn a language for a group that isn't even affected by it. Right. That their death rate is lower than that from anything, including the flu. And you're looking at this and you're like, what did we just do? But everybody was afraid to speak up. Everybody was afraid to say anything. And a lot of people just bought it because we're taught as a society to trust the government. We're supposed to be free. We're not free. Like, think about all the propaganda that's been shoved down our throats since we were kids. I lived by Edwards Air Force Base in California when I was a kid, when I was between the ages of 10 and 13. Desert Storm, Desert Shield. You remember those? We didn't know what was going on. We didn't know why it was happening. We just know America bombed them. Right. And that's also when they started singing the national anthem at football games to increase recruitment into the military. But no one tells you that. Right. They just do it. Life's a big psyop. And everybody buys in. And so it's up to us. And now with social media, we actually have a voice if they don't censor us. Right. Like YouTube, if you said a year ago on YouTube, masks don't work, they take your channel off. Facebook. I got a strike on my channel for saying that Fauci was wrong. That's all I said. I said Fauci's wrong. Strike.
What does that look like?
They copyright, they strike, and it goes away after like a month.
But, I mean, obviously that's on your reputation on...
Mm-hmm. And it affects your algorithm. They shadow banned me in 2020 for simply saying. I had no idea. At that time, we called it Corona. Right. It wasn't even called COVID back then. Right. All I said is, hey, I did this video. It's still up. April of 2020. I said, hey, I don't know what this thing is. I'm not pretending to know. But in many, many years, the flu is just as effective to take vitamin D as it is the vaccination. The flu shot ranges from 10 to 60% depending on the strain in the year. Vitamin D is consistently 10% protection against the flu. Right. I'm like, so we know it does this against another virus. Can't hurt to take some vitamin D. No. I didn't even sell my own stuff. Like, I have my own brand, but you know what? I don't care. Go to Target, go to Walmart, go to Vitamin Shop, buy any vitamin D you can, take 5,000 IUs a day. Shadow banned. My views went from 10,000 a video to 100. simply for, and I had no idea what was happening. I thought maybe it was something I said, so I'm going through the videos. I'm like, did I say something? Did I say a racist joke? Like, what's going on? Turns out they shadow banned me. So you can't even speak up. That's why you have to have your own platforms, right? You almost have to get your own mailing list. You have to have your own way of presenting things. Maybe Rumble's an option, but right now it's really weird. We have social media working lockstep with the government to create this hive mind where if you talk about anything outside of that hive mind, you're a conspiracy theorist. Right. You're misinformation. The conspiracy theorists are batting 1,000 right now. We're going the whole thing.
Right.
So, again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I was just thinking out loud.
Right.
Like, I'm like, wait a second. Like, back in the day, I remember when it was cool to question things. In science, that's what you're supposed to do. And you do it with training, right?
Right.
Like, in training, we look at things and we're like, I wonder if after these heavy sets, if I did one set with 20 reps, and you get this pump, you're like, oh my goodness, that's crazy, right? Dorian Yates questioned things. He's like, I think we're training too much. I think we should just go all out intensity, one set to failure. Arnold, think about it. The volume he did back in the day, training twice a day, till he did it, there was no science to back that up.
Right.
So you question things, and from these questions, these hypotheses, that's where you design your studies. So instead of being like, you know what, we should probably look at that. We should probably see if that's right. They're like, nope, misinformation. When I hear the word misinformation, I know 100% they're trying to pull something over me, man.
Right.
I know 100%. I mean, so you just have to kind of look at things, and they've been doing it our whole lives. 2020 changed nothing. It was just a different vehicle. Like in 1964, the CIA pretty much admitted to killing a sitting president. But we could never do that, right? Like, we're acting like this is all new.
Right.
Like, this has been going on since before. America is the best it's ever been, I'll argue, because we know. That's the problem. We never concerned ourselves with this. In 2008, I had no idea the housing market crashed, and I owned a business and I owned a house. I had no idea because I was just working, watching me some CNN. Had no idea. I learned in 2015 that the housing market crashed in 2008.
So as far as now,
yeah,
what type of news platform do you watch?
Honestly, I just follow different people on Twitter. Twitter is my outlet because I read all the lefty stuff. I read the libertarian stuff. I read the right-wing stuff. And somewhere in there, you're going to find the truth.
Right.
But you have to kind of look around. Because obviously, if you were like the Epoch Times or these little conservative rags, they're terrible. Then you read like the Daily Beast and Huffington, they're terrible. Basically, everything's terrible, right?
Well, I mean, I feel like you still have to form your own opinion, even after watching all those things.
And you can't even trust video anymore. Deep fakes and editing. And I mean, so how do you get your news? What I look at is what's going on locally, right? Like what's going on in your neighborhood, and that's what you can control. Like I can't control the federal government. I don't know the voting's rigged. I don't know. All I know is what's going on in Brentwood, what's going on in Franklin, what's going on in Nashville. How can we help our local community? Can we donate time to kids? Can we donate time to schools? Maybe you can run for school board. Maybe you can run for city council, make a change locally. At the end of the day, we had no mask mandates in Franklin, really. We had this loose one because we elect people who share our ideals.
Right.
We're not going to control what happens in Chicago.
Right.
But we can certainly control or help control, have influence over what happens in Williamson County or even Davidson County. I don't know. Is this Davidson?
No.
Oh, God.
We're Cheatham, which is like, we're kind of like the redneck uncle on the, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like Williamson is the highfalutin.
That's your rich.
Exactly.
That's your rich, crazy uncle.
And then Davidson's like, you know, that's Nashville. That's, I don't know what you call Davidson now, but we're the outcasts, which I kind of like it because it's still kind of homey to me because that's kind of where I'm from is like a redneck kind of blue collar area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't get me wrong. I love Williamson County and there's, I mean, you're just 200,000. Everything's $200,000 more expensive in Williamson County.
And another $200,000 if you're in Brentwood.
Right.
Brentwood, you get the Brentwood tax.
Yeah.
And I like the Brentwood tax because I moved there before Brentwood was Brentwood. Like it was like, we didn't know. If you live in Tennessee, and we had no idea, it's like, you ever look at a house in Brentwood, people are like, like, oh, you're one of those people. I'm like, look at me. Do I look like one of those people? I don't fit in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm your unassuming businessman next door. You know?
Do you guys have an HOA? I'm sure.
We have an HOA.
You abide by all that?
I love the HOA because if you don't have an HOA, you have someone who doesn't cut their grass next door. I had one of my he used to work with me at Cibation. It was Derek. He had a great house in Michigan, and he was trying to sell it. He couldn't because crazy neighbor lady, the cat lady, the bushes that weren't kept. Like they'd come look at his house. So this is nice. They step outside. And they're like, oh.
Right.
So what HOA does for me is it keeps my property value where it's at. Now, long term, I want to have neighbors far enough away like you do, where I don't even care what their yard looks like.
Exactly.
But right now, being 4 minutes from high school and being 12 minutes from where I go in town, but long term, when I'm out of the rat race, I mean, I don't want land, like crazy. I do, but it's not for why other people do. I just kind of...
What's out of upkeep?
Yeah, and I want to be kind of left alone, and I want to have time for the upkeep. Right now, I don't even cut my own grass.
Right.
I have no time for anything. Like my schedule is stupid. I travel every week, and I'm always at meetings. So the time I have, I don't want to be cutting grass. I want to be playing catch with my kids. You know, so it's one of those trade-offs.
For sure. Rat race. How long have? Let me take you back to. We've talked about social media already, and we've talked about the way it's evolved. Mm-hmm. You started. I want you to explain to me how Tiger Fitness started.
Oh wow, we get to go back
because you've been in the fitness industry how long? Like
1999.
I mean, business wise.
1999. 2004, I started Cibation. 99, I worked for Joe Weider.
Okay.
So I actually worked for Weider Publications. So I was one of the last classes, so to speak, to work while Joe was alive, before they sold to American Media. So I was that was when Ronnie started winning Olympias. That was when I started. Like when Ronnie started winning, when he was just now coming off of being natural, depends who you talk to.
Right.
I actually think he might have gotten his pro card natural. Just knowing Ronnie, like he has no reason to lie.
Right.
I know Ronnie enough where I'm like, Ronnie's not gonna lie, he just won't tell you. He'll just, I don't know, like,
right.
You saw his original thing, like with Tom Platzer, he was talking about the cycles he did, and he did a horrible job covering up who he is.
Yeah.
Like, Ronnie just doesn't lie, or he might not know. He might not have known what he was taking. He was probably natural when he got his program.
I do feel like going back, watching the videos, and just even listening to him talk now, he's like, all the basics, your D-ball. I believe there was no, what the things that they're taking nowadays. I don't believe he had to partook in any. I'm sure he did insulin and lots of growth hormone and all that, but I don't think Ronnie was like in a laboratory somewhere.
Most good pros aren't.
I agree.
Most good pros can get by on test, DECA, and maybe some trend. But a lot of times, people assume because their genetics suck or they're just normal. Like you're looking at, if LeBron James practices basketball for 10 minutes, it's the equivalent of you and I practicing for 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some people are just better at things. Like we were talking about Lavroni the other day, right? Yeah. Lavroni only trained for 12 weeks a year.
It's crazy.
And he'd come back in the gym the second week in, he's bench pressing 405 for 15. There's just a genetic spectrum. So when you look at these things, you're like, oh, that guy's on all. Actually, the guys who look the best are usually on less. Right. That's what you'll find out throughout the years. But back to I could ADHD all day.
I'm the same way.
So when I was in college, I started training people at Valley Total Fitness.
Okay.
In Simi Valley, California, and that was when I was 17. That was 1997. And then I was actually found.
Time out.
Yeah.
We totally bypassed an introduction. And that's just kind of how it is. My personality and his personality together. Today on our second episode.
You gonna start another clip?
No, I'll just keep running it. We've got Mark the Machine.
Yeah, I guess that was what they used to. I don't use that anymore really, but we can bring it back.
Well, we're going to bring it back. Lobliner. And basically everything we're going to talk about today is why you're going to see why he got that nickname. And so he's got a long list of things that he's done, and I'm going to try to touch on all those. So I don't want to hinder what we were talking about anymore. Let's just go back to it. Tiger Fitness.
Yeah, so I started my career as a trainer. And do the normal protein bars. And if you talk to most people, like, those protein bars tear up my stomach. I wanted a protein bar that was real food, that didn't tear up stomachs. And I didn't think it would sell because it has carbs in it. Like, there's same amount of carbs as Quest, but Quest has net carbs,
right,
which I think is bullshit. I think that's a fake term. Like, when you go to your clients and be like, okay, today you eat 220 net carbs.
Yeah.
No, they're fucking carbs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I always didn't like that term anyway, so we actually do have less carbs than a Quest bar a lot of the times, because I think they're at 30 total carbs. We're at like 27.
And that's, in your opinion, is that just for marketing?
Oh yeah, net carbs. I mean, just subtracting fiber and this and that. I mean, in my opinion, that's kind of overthinking.
Yeah.
Like, when I eat carbs, I don't look at like, okay, it's too much math. Like, at the end of the day, today my macros are 360 protein, 450 carbs, and my fat lays where whatever trace comes from, right?
Okay.
I'm not going there like, okay, this bagel right here, I got 2 grams of fiber, 26. No, I'm like, there's 26 grams of carbs.
Right.
Good. So I always thought it was bullshit. I've never known a successful coach who's used net carbs.
Right, no.
At the end of the day, if it's a carb, it's a carb. What are your thoughts on that?
Same, absolutely. I mean, we're eating carbs for a reason. So if I want you having 400 grams of carbs. Huh?
I want those carbs.
Yeah, I mean,
I want the fuel.
Well, it's so crazy. Like, when we talk carbs, if I send a plan out and it's no carbs, their mindset totally changes compared to if it's got even 50 carbs on it. You know what I mean? No carbs. They're automatically dreading. I could have said, all right, tomorrow, go to Five Guys and get whatever you want, but then we're going no carbs. Oh. Like, they've already lost the battle.
Think about the cheeseburger. You got to earn the cheeseburger.
I mean, I could rant and rant and rant. I find that interesting that you say you kept them below, what was the bar?
So we're at 27 carbs usually. And Quest is around 25 to 30. Quest, again, like,
well,
I love Quest bars. Yeah. I just can't eat them.
Right.
And my kids can't eat them, and like my wife has diverticulitis, she can't eat it. Like, all of us have weird stomachs. So as a creator, as someone, that, like you talked about Extend earlier, the intra-workout category, colored beverages, that's me. That's my category. Like, right. It's the reason I have a house right now. That's what started making me cash. Right. So I create things. But you find that when you create things, it's based on bias. This was created on bias. I did not create these to sell. I wanted to simply sell enough that I could eat them for free by myself.
Right.
I was going to sell them just on Tiger Fitness. I had no intention of them having 100,000 retailers. In fact, I wish it didn't. It's such a pain in the ass. Oh my God, you start dealing with these big box retailers. It's not fun.
Why is it a pain in the ass?
Oh my God, contracts with grocery stores are not like selling direct. Selling direct, you're like, all right. I'm like,
when you say selling direct,
Tiger Fitness.
Like, I'm ordering it off your website.
You go to Tiger Fitness. Give us your credit card, ship it out.
Boom.
Man, there's all the sales process, there's slotting fees, there's marketing allowance, there's growth allowance. By the time you're done, there's no money.
Right.
So as a company, you need to have a direct sales channel, or else you're not making money. Like, these companies that are all brick and mortar, they're operating on extremely slim or no margins.
Yeah.
Or they're just all top line. I'm a big bottom line type guy. I want EBITDA. EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, which is basically your bottom line. So when you go to sell a company, like I just did last year, your top line, your number, like let's say you do 20 million sales, that's top line, your total gross sales. They don't care about that. Your sales price is based on a multiple off EBITDA. But even so, it's like, if I have a line of credit for $300,000 and I can use $300,000, that's different than me having $300,000 sitting on the table right here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I would rather have the cash.
Absolutely.
So if you operate your life like that, you'll be in a much better, much less stress life. Like,
right.
So as a business, I think one of my main, I'd say regrets is I would have probably kept it all direct if I could do it all over again.
But it's got to feel a certain way to have your bar that you created in every big store.
Oh, it's the best. My daughter went to go see University of Kentucky.
Yeah.
And she walked into the student store.
Outright
There's
bar.
the outright bar, and I get goosebumps.
I just got
like,
goosebumps.
And my daughter's like, oh my God. I'm like, this is fucking cool, right?
Cool.
The first time you see your product on a shelf in a major retailer, and I mean, with Ambrosia and Outright, I got probably 20 or 30 placements in the vitamin shop, right?
Yeah.
I got 2 placements in GMC, 3 placements in GMC. So that's pretty cool. But then you go into a grocery store and you see yourself at Hy-Vee or you see yourself at Giant Eagle, and you're like, oh, so this is where the big boys play.
That's cool.
I mean, if I was based on ego, that would mean more than actually making money.
Oh man.
Because it's like, hey, yeah, and you walk into a random gas station in BF, Minnesota, and there's your bar. People be like all the time, yeah, I have no idea where I am, but here's your bar. I'm like, oh, cool. Because once you're in distribution, people are like, where can I buy this? I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know where our bars are. Like, I couldn't tell you. I walk into places and look for them all the time. If I have to stop and pee, driving somewhere, I'm like, oh, this is really cool. Because at the end of the day, I'm just a meathead from the hood.
Right.
You know, like, I'm still that same guy. I haven't changed. Like, if you met me, but my personality is that of a 15-year-old.
Right.
Like, I have yet to grow up. And you've known me enough, you probably...
Right.
I'll button it up for meetings, but in real life, I'm just...
You're who you are, unapologetically.
Yeah, and luckily for me, you know, since I've been 24, I've had... Well, up until last year, I have partners. So I button it up every Tuesday for board meetings.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm me.
Well, I think that's part of, that quality of life that you're chasing.
Bingo.
You know?
You don't have to be something you're not. And you can say what you feel, and that's when things really get done. Once you have that freedom, like, think about what Elon Musk has done. Because how can you hurt the guy? He's the richest man in the world. It's like, he's losing billions on Twitter, and it's like us dropping $1 on the street.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
Because
I think he enjoys that.
I mean, when you're that rich, you need to seek enjoyment from trolling people.
Absolutely.
He's so good at it, too.